Hey everyone. I'm in a glazing mode right now. I've been sort of in a making mode. I was making pots for about 2 months and then just bisquing them just to gain some momentum in my making life. And so there's not a lot to show you when I'm glazing, but I got a few questions about how I get how do I glaze these guys, or my flower bricks. And so right now you can sort of see, I just kind of did the bottom of the feet on these guys, and then the interiors of the flower bricks. You can kind of see that. Um, and so I've tried lots of ways to do these. They're kind of impossible. It's like glazing air. And so what I end up doing is I use a slip trailer and I fill it full of glaze. And then I'm just going to use kind of gravity and then this guy. So one of the things I will do with a little paintbrush is I will sort of get the glaze started on top. One of the things that I think is difficult with this is making sure that I get enough glaze material on. So I don't usually, I use commercial glazes, so I don't water down my glaze a ton, but sometimes it'll be a little bit thick, and I'll need a little bit of water just to get it moving. So it's just trial and error and figuring out what works. Sometimes if I thin it down too much, then I have to reapply, which is a drag because this takes forever. It's funny, I'm starting these out today early because I just switched to turquoise, and so I finished up and loaded all the mint pots. And so, these are the worst to do late at night when I'm tired. So I was like, I'm just going to start these early in the day, get them knocked out because I can paint mugs and it's a much easier do than worrying about this. So I just got this sort of started. So I'm just going to use this guy, and it's helpful when it's full. And then I just start to slowly drizzle some glaze on here. So this is like watching paint dry, because it totally is. But I just wanted to talk about glazing a little bit for you guys. I know it's one of the more difficult aspects of clay, because I think most of us really enjoy the making process. There are a few folks out there that love the glazing chemistry process. More power to them. I do not. It's so laborious and usually so disappointing and heartbreaking most of the time. So I really do just, but I do say this. It's like if you want to get good at glazing and get your pottery to kind of look how you want, you have to spend time glazing and figuring out what you want, right? And so, this sort of process, for me even, it took me years to sort of develop this process, and it's very laborious and kind of crazy that how I do it, but it's definitely what I want, right? And so part of that is figuring out your abstract idea of what do you want it to be, because I think I, like everybody else, looked at glaze books and they're a wonderful resource, but often I would make the recipe and then it never looked right on my pots. And so I think, which led to a lot of disappointment, and also when it did look right, like the glaze turned out how I thought, it was often not right because it was on my pot and not Joe Pence's pot or Meredith Brickell's work. It didn't quite match. I didn't have a voice yet with my glazing, and so that takes time and practice. And one of the rules of thumb I try to tell my students about is you have to spend as much time glazing and researching glaze as you do making, right? So that is, sometimes we don't want to do that, and sometimes that's okay if you're part of a studio that has buckets of glaze. Just enjoy that process too. I'm not advocating for one or the other, but if glazing is something that you struggle with and you really want to get better at, you have to invest the time. And so right now I'm just starting, I actually just went and bought glaze materials yesterday to start making up some new test samples and sort of thinking about some new directions that I want to go. But that's most likely, I'll make some stuff and I'll hate it, and then I'll make some more stuff and I'll hate it. I don't expect it to be successful right away. What I'm hoping for is some growth in that, right? And some ideas. And it's just like your making process. If you make and then all of a sudden, what the picture you had in your head of what you're making and then what you actually make, But there is success in that, and like you learned things that didn't work, things that did work, or actually what direction you want to go, or if architecturally you need to figure out a different approach to how to make it. So you learn from all those failures and stuff. So just remember to be kind to yourself in your glazing. It's a process, and it's like, I think some of the greats out there, they're always glaze testing. Like I remember hearing Gustin, like every time he fires a wood kiln, he has test tiles in there. That's the way to do it. Like, to me, as much as I don't want to do that, I know that that's the way to do it. And to really keeping your surface kind of exciting and interesting to you, and maybe more your own, is to figure out what you like, and then just keep aiming towards it. And some things will get you closer, some things will get you farther away. I know there's a lot of great resources out there now, as far as glazing goes, and so just, be kind to yourself. It's one of those things that just takes time and practice. So that is basically what I do, and I'll do typically the outside first, and then I'll do the inside, and this part and this foot part will get 3 coats of glaze painted on. I don't know if you can sort of see the shadow. Like, so this little area right here is a little bit thicker, and if I don't get enough glaze material on there, you'll see that line, and that will annoy me to no end. So I'm just going to keep the first coat. I don't know if those of you that use commercial glazes, the first coat always goes on pretty thin. I think, even using commercial glazes takes some practice to get good results. And I do use commercial glazes, and I do apply 3 coats. And those 3 coats are generous, and that first coat is barely brushed on, but like the second my brush runs dry, I know I need more glaze material, right? So I really do load it up and get that glaze on there and let the firing do the rest. But I am pretty religious about doing the 3 coats. I used to be able to get away with 2 coats, but these days, like, either the glaze has changed a little bit, I just find it's a little bit safe, or my clay has changed. My clay is always sort of changing depending on where I'm living. So this is actually a newer clay body for me, and it's really, really rich in saturation of the red. So to combat that, I need a good amount of glaze on there. And so things will happen where you guys can kind of see right here, boop, 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 I got a little goober, like the glaze got on this interior window. And that's part of the reason I glaze this way, because I don't want this interior window glazed. I want it to show through the red. And so I just use this little guy, and then I'll just smear the clay on there somehow. So, and that just, I try to minimize that, but it's not that big a deal. I've had a couple, because I did some new forms. Like, this is a really nice form to do because gravity helps. This form, not so much. Like this, like it all drips all over, so I'm doing a lot of cleaning up, which is what it is. So I try not to lament too much. I like load up with good podcasts and dumb movies to watch, and just sort of sit and slow and steady work on it. And, one of the things I think you should always have when you're glazing is water, and then some lotion handy. Like, I tend to dry out a lot. Like, my hands get really dry. So, because I'm just always washing my hands. And then, so drink your water, wash your hands, apply some lotion, and take care of yourself. Okay, I hope you all have a wonderful day. I'm going to get back to it. And I'll see you in the funny papers. Okay, bye.